We just got to a point where we had sold about 200,000 copies of SnapStream Beyond TV. We were in, Fry's Electronics, Micro Center, and all these retail stores, but we basically ran out of early adopters to sell the product to. There weren't enough people like me and my co-founder Richard to buy the product.
Was this late 90s, early 2000s, or when was this exactly?
Early 2000s, yeah. Bill Gates showed the product off in his keynote at the Windows XP launch, which was like the first big public event in New York City after 9/11. We just realized that we were going to hit a wall, and so we in that period went out and said, okay, what do we want to be when we grow up?
Welcome to Forging the Future. Building a business is no easy feat, and today I'm excited to sit down with Rakesh Agrawal, founder and CEO of SnapStream, to dive into founding in Houston, scaling an operation and team, and product development with the rise of AI. So welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. I think we have a lot in common building businesses in Houston. And you founded a company in Houston 20 plus years ago, right? So that's similar to me, although I think it went back like 35 years. But, back then I just didn't really know many founders, right? It was difficult to find, I think, there was no coalescing of startup development organizations and where founders would really get together. Maybe walk me through the decision back then to found your company and why you chose Houston.
So I have deep roots in Houston. I've been in Houston for almost all of my life. I was born and brought up here. I grew up in the Clear Lake part of town, and I did live in India for part of middle school and high school, but otherwise I've been in Houston throughout. And so I had a draw to stay here. I wanted to stay in Houston. The founding of SnapStream goes back to a friend of mine from high school, and I were tech tinkerers. We were always trying out new technology. That was true in high school as well. After we graduated, this friend of mine and I were kind of throwing ideas around for television. We were traveling a lot, and we wanted to be able to watch our TV shows away from home, meaning, what was airing in Houston, but while we were on the road. And, this was before the advent of, every TV show being available online. It was before the advent of Slingbox, if you remember back in the day, that allowed you to place shift television. And so that was really the original idea behind SnapStream, was this consumer software product that would turn your PC into a DVR and leverage your internet connection, which was, a weak internet connection back then, 20 years ago, to be able to access that outside the house. So there was a lot of stuff in there. For people that have been through technology adoption curves, you might hear that and say, that was probably an early adopter product, and you'd be right. It was something that, the early adopters would buy, but we realized along the way that it wasn't going to go mainstream, that beyond the tech early adopters, what people wanted was a TiVo. They wanted a consumer electronics box. They didn't want to put this like heat generating PC in their living room and, hook it up to their TV.
Yeah, I was an early user of the TiVo.
Yeah. Fantastic
product, at least back then. But yeah, Slingbox seemed to start about that time too. By the way, Dave Matthews, who I've had on the show, was one of the guys involved with Slingbox. Oh. And you mentioned the QCat up there, so
right. Yeah, the QCat it's actually a really fascinating case study as we see QR codes take off now. It was kind of laughed at after it came out. It was this big play to allow you to jump from physical media to the internet in the early days of the internet. So it was a barcode scanner. I think it did like code 21 barcode scanning. You would hook it up as a HID device on your PC. So it would act like a keyboard, and you'd scan it, and it would stick the UPC code or the barcode into whatever the text field it was on. And so they had Wired magazine and all these people putting the QCat codes in their magazines. They made a ton of these devices. The company went bankrupt, didn't work out. But of course, QR codes now are everywhere, right? They're ubiquitous. Same idea, but it didn't really happen until we had mobile phones and these like mobile networks, et cetera.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time. I mean, I don't think it really deserves this mantra of one of the worst products. I think PC Magazine or somebody voted it that way. But I mean, you're right. I mean, QR codes nowadays, it's exactly that. I mean, you take your phone, you snap a QR code. Well, back then you had to have a device in order to scan it in.
Yeah.
You know. So you started SnapStream back before Slingbox and TiVo and et cetera. And how did you realize you were really ahead of its time at that point? I mean, did you pivot at some point or?
I mean, I think we made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we learned as we went. In a lot of ways, SnapStream has kind of mirrored my own personal development, and in a lot of different respects. But we just got to a point where we had sold about 200,000 copies of SnapStream Beyond TV. We were in Fry's Electronics, Micro Center, and all these retail stores. But we basically ran out of early adopters to sell the product to. There weren't enough people like me and my co-founder Richard to buy the product.
Was this late 90s, early 2000s, or when was this exactly?
Early 2000s, yeah. Okay. Bill Gates showed the product off in his keynote at the Windows XP launch.
Oh, nice.
Which was like the first big public event in New York City after 9/11. So we just realized that we were going to hit a wall. And so we, in that period, went out and said, okay, what do we want to be when we grow up? And we started just like going down some different blind alleys, not really sure where things were going to lead. We built a kind of a social network for people who watch television. It was called Couchville. We didn't know how we would make money ultimately off advertising. We got a lot of great traffic and attention and press, but it didn't feel like it was the future for us. We didn't know what we were doing, basically, in a consumer product like that. Another idea that we pursued was over the years, we had businesses come to us and say, hey, we are using your $100 product in our broadcast studio operation. So like, for example, people from Saturday Night Live had called us and said, we're tinkering around with your product and it's really useful to us. We have like a stack of TiVos that we record a bunch of stuff on. We'll use clips of that stuff in certain segments of the show. And we were like, but we always ignored them. Ultimately, we were like, hey, we're a small company, we have to focus. And so during this period, we said, why don't we go like understand better what it is these people are doing? Actually, a local organization, the Harris County Sheriff's Office, was one of these people that didn't fit into our ideal customer profile for the consumer product. And so I remember going to the Harris County Sheriff's Office and talking to the public information office that was using the product. And I was like, what are you doing with this? Like, how is Beyond TV helping you? And they talked about how SnapStream allowed them to record like a breaking news car chase that would be on every channel and then record their PIOs talking to the media. And they wanted to be able to very quickly, train people off of how they engaged with the media. And they didn't have an easy way to do that. Otherwise, it was like VHS tapes and all these other cumbersome technologies. And so we were like, I bet a lot of other people have this problem where they want to make it easy to like access television in a knowledge worker setting at a keyboard with a mouse and and on their PC. And so this enterprise product was born that, we basically, we talked to a few other people and we're like, okay, we're just going to go all in on this. And we built search technology. So we would index the shows that were recorded and then, you could find a needle in a haystack. And so The Daily Show and Colbert and all these late night TV shows became customers. And then we just, leaned into that. Social media became a big thing for us. And now we're how CNN posts clips to Twitter or X and all the other social networks. We have a few hundred users there. And so the business grew really by like listening to customers. We just, kept following, what our customers were talking to us about and the problems they were telling us about. And we kept solving those problems. And so, whether it's clipping from television or clipping from a podcast or an event you're hosting, companies in their marketing efforts have another lever they can pull to get their message out there and get greater reach in the form of building their own audiences.
The key thing there was just listening to what people were using your product for and then trying to adapt and lean into that rather than what you thought they were going to use it for. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of times if there was one job if I did just one job within a software company, it would be product management. A lot of times you have to like read between the lines or, hear what the customer isn't saying or what's, implicit in what they are saying. For example, the ability to search videos was actually not something anybody asked for, right? But as we spent time with people and you would see the things that they were doing, the Harris County Sheriff's Office, they were, fast forwarding at 2x and 3x speed through the video. And they're like, oh, wait, there's the PIO talking to the TV host. And they would go back to it. And we were like, it's probably a better way to do that. It's probably a better way to accomplish their goal. What if we could provide search to them? So yeah, a lot of times it's like, the old quote, the Henry Ford quote, if I'd listened to my customers, I would have built a faster horse. Absolutely true, in terms of, gleaning insights from customers.
How do you balance that? I mean, Henry Ford says, don't listen to the customer. He would have wanted a faster horse. You're saying, well, you need to listen to the customer in order to build a sustainable business. So how do you know when to listen to them and when not to listen to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why product management is a really important job. And so those choices become, really the fabric of a company that's, built around products, right? Those judgment decisions that we make would determine our future. So yeah, you could, and you're right, it's not black and white, right? If you're always looking to read between the lines, you might miss the thing that they said they need, and you just need to go build it, right? They did need a faster horse. So it's these are judgment calls then, and that's why, that role of product management, which is often carried by the founder for, a good amount of the life cycle of a software company. I think that's part of the reason why that's usually closely held for some period of time.
So your team is about 30 people now.
Yeah.
Right? And back in 2000, about how big was it then when you were getting debuted on Bill Gates?
We were like 3 people, 4 people.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. How did things change over time? I mean, what key strategies have you used as the company has grown? And, you mentioned this product manager role, which is also similar, I think, to like a visionary role.
Yes. Yeah. I think that one component throughout has been staying close to customers and staying in conversation with customers. In our customer base, I know that I have a few visionary customers that are sort of always on speed dial. I can call them up or email them, and I get a good pulse on an idea that I might have. Beyond that, I would say I'm really proud of the team that we've built at the company, and I think that I have learned how teams get built. Where in the early days, in the 0 to 1 days when we were getting started, we were 30 people and about $7 million in ARR. In the early days, I was probably a benevolent dictator in terms of how decisions got made at the company. There wasn't a lot of structure in terms of leadership, and I burned out a couple of times along the way, and realized that there's a better way to organize and run the company. One that was better for me, but also one that was better for people at the company. And so, the last couple of years, I have built a leadership team. Tom Kabansky joined our team first as a technologist, as the head of the engineering team, and then moved into the president role. And he now runs. He's responsible for execution, and then we've built largely. Tom has built this wonderful leadership team that really owns all of their different functions, and we've articulated the values of the company and the mission, and now it's all in the hands of this this awesome organization that's been built. So I'd say that that's probably another part of the growth strategy has been to unbundle me as a force behind the company and really delegate that authority throughout the company.
And how did you learn how to do that? Was it just trial and error, make it up as you go along? Was there a platform that you used in order to accomplish that?
I mean, we use EOS, and I'll talk about that. But it was all of those things,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a smooth journey, and a lot of internal work for me as a founder and as a leader, to let go of things and to shift the way that I think about things. I would say like some mentors have been really key to me. You had JR on the show, John Reale.
Mm-hmm.
JR is a dear friend, and he's been a great mentor to me. In one of those periods of burning out, just before COVID, I think it was like 2018, December 2018, we had acquired a division of Verizon, a company they had acquired, a former competitor that they wanted to divest themselves of. And so we had taken over this division of Verizon, and I was like, in the old mode of chief cook and bottle washer, was doing all the jobs. And I called JR up one day and I was like, I need help. Like and so he came over, and he's been an advisor at the company for the last couple of years. And I think I've really learned a lot from him. He's just a great leader and a great strategist. And so, we co-led the company for a period in there, and I really learned a whole lot from him. We do use EOS now. EOS is the entrepreneur's operating system. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably not as deep on EOS as Tom is, our president.
Was he the one that brought it into the company?
Well, I introduced him to it.
Oh, okay.
But being a visionary, I sort of like read the summary, and then I was like, oh, this seems cool. Mm-hmm. But he was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I love this operating cadence, and so level 10 meetings and all of many of the cadences that are part of EOS are things that we use in the company. So he really has brought it to life within the company. And it's, look, I'm sure that there are different ways that you can use EOS. I think we're flexible to exactly how we execute on it. We're not, zealots about the process. Which I appreciate, but we do use that basic framework for how we divide up responsibilities, how we set goals for the company on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis, on a longer term multi-year plan basis, and it's worked really well for us.
Yeah, part of EOS is this visionary role and an integrator role, right? And of course, the founder oftentimes in the beginning has both of those hats, right? It sounds like you would prefer to be in the visionary role. Was it difficult to give up the integrator part of the business? Is that something now that Tom has taken on?
Tom has taken that over. Well, it hasn't been hard because I have a great partnership with Tom. I think, I have ideas all the time. I think Tom filters through those and prioritizes those, and I feel heard when we have those conversations. So, I think, I think it hasn't been ultimately that hard for me to let those things go. I remember the first time that I listened to Traction, which is one of the core books for EOS. Mm-hmm. I was driving to Austin with my wife, and so. We were listening to this book. I had actually told her, "Hey, I want you to hear this," and we were cracking up laughing because they're talking about certain behaviors that visionaries have at a certain stage in a business, and they talk about like bright and shiny object syndrome, where this visionary founder is sort of sabotaging the success of the company because they're constantly creating like organizational whiplash and. Oh, hey, there's a new cool thing. Let's go do that. And then it's like a week later, it's like, oh, there's another bright, shiny object.
Look, a butterfly.
And so we both were cracking up laughing because, my wife was like, yeah, sounds like somebody I know. It's been great. And, there's a lot of like historical context of other companies, Roy Disney, who most people haven't heard of. Walt Disney's brother was the guy who kept the trains running on time. the two Steves at Apple. Wozniak was more of the integrator and the guy who kept the trains running on time. So it totally made sense to me, like from an ideas standpoint. Yeah, I would say that's been one of the core ideas that's been meaningful to me at SnapStream.
So now that you've stepped out of that integrator role and in the visionary role, how do you really foster that, the kind of collaboration and innovation at the company?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier that I'm a tinkerer, and so I think I still do a lot of tinkering at the company. And recently, that has been in areas around LLMs and AI. We generate a transcript for every video that we take in, and we use that transcript to help the user find the moment that matters from within this longer form content. And so one of the ideas that's been compelling is this idea that DVRs made it so that you could watch video anytime. But what if now AI can watch videos for you and highlight things for you, give you conclusions or answer questions that you have. So, for example, that's like an area that I've been toying around with, and then I'll take the work that I've done and I'll maybe show it off in a lunch and learn or something like that, or share it. So I would say like product is one of the key places that I've stayed engaged. Part of the EOS process is we do a monthly business review where the leadership team reports out largely to me on what's going on in the business. And it's a 90-minute meeting, and it's a great opportunity for me to ask deeper questions and share insights from my experience in the business. And I'm somebody who is apprentice of many things and a master of none, and I may have some insights that help them in whatever it is they're working on, whether it's marketing or sales or engineering. So that's been a key ritual that has kept me connected into what's happening at the company. Other than that, I would say in terms of driving innovation at the company. I also keep my finger on the pulse of the market. And that's something I do anyways. Like I'm always curious about new products. I think you know this. I'm an investor in a bunch of early stage companies. Part of my love of technology is indulged in the early stage investing that I do, and whether it's like Y Combinator demo days where I'll hear 150 pitches. Which is definitely like drinking out of a fire hose, or just the reading I do of stuff happening on Twitter and people I follow there or people I talk to. I have this like constantly changing picture of what's going on in the market and what's interesting, and some of that will translate into product related things at SnapStream, or even operations related things at SnapStream.
So we talked about innovation. I know you briefly mentioned AI, but how has AI influenced your approach to product development?
I don't think the story's been written yet. It's being written right
Early
now.
days on AI.
Yeah, and especially for us at SnapStream. I followed a lot of things happening in AI at the people that are developing the core models, and then the apps that are being built on those models and the kinds of things that they enable. I moved the ChatGPT app to the second page on my home screen, and increasingly I'll be like, oh, I should like take that New York Times article that a friend forwarded me that I didn't want to read the whole thing on, and tell ChatGPT to read it for me, and it works great. There are a lot of things it doesn't work well for. So I think the starting point has been tinkering for me, just in my daily cadences of information acquisition and processing, like adding it as a tool in the toolbox to figure out where it's useful. One killer app that I discovered the other day, you might appreciate this as a founder who occasionally has to review legal documents, and I don't know about you, but it's not something I look forward to doing. I don't wake up in the morning saying, I can't wait to read the
fine print on that MSA or NDA.
Exactly. Yeah. But you can feed, I have the paid version of ChatGPT, but you can feed the document in and say, hey, read it for me and summarize it. And I did this once, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, you know. But I think like talking more specifically about SnapStream, we have somebody's video, and we're usually taking it in live. One of our points of view is that you should not only be creating clips, but you should be creating these moments as the event is happening. That's the if you're hosting a live event, like you should be creating the clips and posting them in real time. There's something magical about live, and you have that opportunity with short clips. And obviously you see that happening in the news, and a lot of those people creating clips in the news are customers of ours, the media companies that are out there. And so we have this video, we have the transcript, and so transcripts are really good for LLMs. Like it's a perfect fit, but like how do we marry that transcript to the actual video asset itself? And so I think summarization is an interesting area, and there's some features that will probably ship in the product soon around summarization. I think that actually having AI find the clips, the moments that matter within a program, is also interesting. We're probably behind there. There's a bunch of tools that have come out, not for live, but for podcasters that'll automatically create clips for you. But I'm interested in us playing in that area in live, and we have some experiments going there to build that tool. We certainly don't have it built, so I think it's just going to be a lot of iteration and trial and error to get to hopefully something that's breakthrough, right? But I think the dream is we have this one user, Aaron Rupar. Aaron Rupar has million plus followers on Twitter. You've probably seen his stuff because whenever there's any kind of like political hearing of note or a political rally of note, he is clipping that and posting it on his Twitter account in real time. He has so the idea for our automatic clipping feature, what Tom refers to it as this. Tom is a deep technologist and an innovator as well, that we want to build Aaron Rupar in a box. We want to make it so that, if you had Aaron Rupar's, his judgment on the moments that matter within a particular program, which he clearly has for, certain categories of content, like that's what we want to bring inside of SnapStream. So, like one of our customers holds this like big international event that the whole world watches, that world leaders go to and corporate leaders go to. And, they have like producers that sit there and create these short clips. But what if like we could assist them and give them like a solid first draft of those cuts, and then they could curate from there? It would dramatically decrease the need for labor to go and find those key moments. And I think that's achievable. It's doable.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, there's a lot of video content, right? And how do you process it? How do you watch it? How do you index it? And having AI do it at 4x speed or whatever it can do it at makes a lot of sense. And then just highlights. We've seen some applications of that for any type of video where you're, for example, inspecting. You got a drone flying over a pipeline. Well, you don't want someone to sit there and watch for 2 hours of that video.
Yeah.
But can AI highlight like, well, this looks like something you should look at,
right,
and just kind of skip past all the part that you don't really need to know about.
Yeah.
Right? So Rakesh, part of my forging the future has been pivoting from entrepreneurship toward investing in startups and getting more active in investing in building and collaborating with startups. I think you have a shared passion for that. So tell me a little bit about your own journey in investing.
I think it was a little over 10 years ago, 2011 or 2012, that I got myself invited to Y Combinator demo day. I had some money, and I just said, "Hey, I'm gonna like go learn how early stage investing works." And I artificially constrained myself to writing 2 checks into companies, and I said, "I'm gonna come away having invested in 2 companies, and ready, fire, aim. Like I'm gonna learn as I learn from doing." And so, so began this journey of learning what early stage investing is all about. And, it's it is it's a heuristic game, meaning there's not some formula that you can plug 5 variables into every time and get an answer out the other end of like invest, don't invest. It's always like, well, if this, then that, but with this exception, blah, 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 right? And so as an operator, I had seen some of this pattern matching. I could have pattern matched from my own experiences to these companies. But then also, as somebody who followed tech news for a very long time, I used a lot of that to apply in learning about early stage investing. So, over time, I've built this portfolio of like 50 early stage companies that were at the early stages when I invested. In some cases, all I have left of the investment is a T-shirt that they sent me. And in other cases, I've had successful exits.
But you had to go to California for that, right? I'm assuming Y Combinator in California in 2011.
Yeah.
And now fast forward, you've done 50 investments. Have you transitioned from investing in California companies and startups to doing that here in Houston?
Yes, in fact, I have.
Okay.
And so I can't remember when, after I started investing, that I said, hey, why exactly what you pointed out? Like I have to get on a plane and go out there. In part, what I love about investing is the people that it associates me with. Yes, I hope to make money from my portfolio. I think I will continue to, but also part of it is that I get tickets and front row seats to innovation in a particular market. And I get to learn about another market, whatever that market may be. And as somebody who's a lifelong learner and loves disruption, especially technology disruption, that's just a lot of fun for me. I was like, what if I could get that without getting on a plane to Mountain View? And so so now I've built, there was a period, I'm a little less active right now, where I would, I made this effort to get into companies that I built conviction around investing in. And so...
Where were you finding those in Houston 5 years ago?
I mean, it's all of these little pockets in the community of startup activity. So, Station Houston was one of those places. I was an early investor in Graylog. I'm an investor in LionGuard. It's also things that I know a little bit, enterprise SaaS software. So, I've stayed close to my knitting, but also not. I've invested in, life science companies, drugs, devices, diagnostics. But in those deals, I have trusted friends that basically help me validate those deals a little bit on the tech side. I think early stage investing is a solo sport ultimately. You need to have your own conviction about founders and ideas. There also are common patterns between the patterns of failure, modes of failure and success across industries. You'll see certain patterns that you recognize from enterprise SaaS also apply in medical devices, et cetera. So actually, there's a funny story. I was at a CEO dinner that I can't remember who had organized this. Every so often, there's a new CEO dinner that pops up, and every so often I'll get invited, and so everyone's going around the room introducing themselves, and Joe from LionGuard was like, yeah, and blah blah blah, LionGuard does this, and Rakesh is an investor in my company, and it became a joke because I was actually an investor in 80% of the companies in the room. Small investor, a small check, but it sort of reflected this effort that I had to kind of build an index fund of the Houston startups that I thought would be successful ultimately.
6 degrees of Rakesh,
something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, do you think things have improved over time here in Houston for being able to find investable startups?
I feel like there's a false premise in that question, which is that it was bad and it needs to get better. Mm-hmm. I felt like good deals have been there in Houston for a while. I think this is even true today. Maybe you have to do more work to go out and find those deals. I think a lot of people who complain about this are people not like you and me who understand how these kind of deals work. And what they're really complaining about is not understanding how these deals work versus the deals aren't out there. I think they are out there.
Is there any of your investments that you're particularly proud of out of the 50, or is it too early?
It's not even that it's too early. It's that until this summer, I didn't even have like a great track of all of the companies. I sat down with my wife and we actually made a table of all of them because I just wasn't doing a good job of like keeping track of them. Like a fund investment where you have to like submit a K-1 to the IRS or whatever. It's just something you bought and you own a piece of this company. And then, if there's a liquidity event, you have to worry about it from a tax standpoint. I mean, there are companies that have done well. I was early investor in Cruise, the self-driving car company, which came to Houston and shortly after that kind of shut down operations. I think their office is actually in the building across the street. I noticed it.
Oh, wow.
They did really well. They were bought by GM for $1 billion and invested really early on. So those are like probably my first big liquidity event in an early stage company. You see these cameras all over Houston and around the country. They're LPR, license plate recognition companies. I was an early investor in that company, Flock Safety. They've done really well. And I was at the Galleria the other day and I was like, oh, hey, there's a Flock Safety camera. Like I can recognize the industrial design on the box. So it's cool to see companies that are delivering on the promise. I followed Graylog closely and LineGuard, both Houston companies, and they've done really well. Like companies hit kind of like rough spots along the way, or not even rough spots, but times where they have to like go back to the basics, or they have to redefine themselves. They got too broad. They have to narrow the focus again. And it's always great to see companies successfully, get through those periods. But again, I'm not like super involved in the companies on a day-to-day basis. So, I'm a supporter, but there's adult supervision that's actually, involved in the companies on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And I rely upon that as a angel investor.
So Rakesh, you're a man of many hats. You're a builder, you're an operator, you're an investor. You're also a photographer, I hear, and we didn't cover that topic.
Yeah.
But I did get you some socks that kind of talk about your passion. So
thank you very much.
I've got my Christmas socks on today.
Love it.
And so I don't know if you have any camera socks, but there you go.
I don't think I do.
Well, thanks for coming on the show and talking about your journey. It was a pleasure to learn more about what you're doing here in Houston.
Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.